Begin this. So it's good to see all of you this day that we gather for ICF Orange County for this chapter event here. And my name is Daryl Kozak. I have the honor and privilege of being the president this year of our chapter. I know we have several others that have registered. They're probably still going to be coming in here, but I wanted to make sure we started the session today. And as we turn things over here, I want to introduce our speaker. Ursula Pottinga is the founder of Be Above. And by the way, that's spelled capital B, capital E, above. So it's Be Above Leadership. And she is the co-developer leader of its groundbreaking training program for advanced coaches, which is called Neuroscience, Consciousness, and Transformational Coaching. It's available as a 40-week virtual certification program. She also leads Be Above's Neuroscience and Relational Trauma certification program. I really love that thing about trauma, because that is something, Ursula, we, especially nowadays, you know, the last several years, it's part of our lives, unfortunately.
Well, it's everywhere. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. Ursula is a certified professional coactive coach and a master neurotransformational coach with more than 20 years of experience. A sought-after speaker and coach, Ursula also has her own consulting and coaching company called Profound Growth. In this capacity, she supports highly successful leaders in breaking out of patterns that have held them back from claiming the best version of themselves, impacting culture, relationships, and creating new paths forward. So again, it's my honor to welcome you, Ursula, to our chapter meeting today.
And it is an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Daryl, for being here and, you know, looking after all the logistics. And thank you very much, everybody. If you can come on video, that would be lovely. I said earlier on, even if you're still in your pajamas, it's not a problem. You know, just come as you are. I much prefer seeing your lovely faces instead of staring at a black screen with white letters on it. So it's wonderful to be here. And today we will be diving into the 4 factors that really determine how our clients can access higher levels of consciousness. And so I have PowerPoint slides, but I will stop in between for you to share and give us your insights and questions. And at the very end, with a little bit of luck, I have a coaching tool that we can either do together or I can demo, and then you can just do it by yourself. But no matter what, the instructions of this coaching tool are very clear. So even if we run out of time, know that you will have something that you can hang your head on and that you can use afterwards. Okay, so let's dive right in. So the neuroscience of consciousness, how coaching does create a more effective brain, and really how we can help our clients in so many ways. And there's really 4 key ways that consciousness increase, and they're all related to the brain. And so we will be exploring those 4 ways. And what we do as coaches already, so that's the good news. And maybe also looking through the lens of, well, what else could I do more of? And then, you know, we have a simple tool at the very end that is called valuation. So why do you coach? Do we as coaches have a bigger purpose beyond what our clients want? If so, what might it be? So what do you think? What's your stake? Given clients have their own agenda and we will follow that and we will coach them around that, that's a given. We are ICF, you know, coaches, so we will not ram our agenda down the client's throat. That's a given. But in the back of our mind, in our hearts, in our energy field, is there a bigger purpose as we look at our clients and as we look at coaches? And what might it be for you? Type it in the chat or come off mute. Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
For me, it's personal. Those clients who seek me out, based on my niche, which is helping leaders to deal with race-based programs. When they reach out to me, that says to me that they want to be able to effectively deal with it. And if I can change that behavior so that they can, then the results of that behavior change means that those individuals participating in that particular race-based program are more likely to get something out of it. And for me, that's personal.
Yeah, I love that, Sharon. And I love the passion behind it. It's personal. This is not just done anything. It is personal, and the impact of that is personal. Yeah, I love that. To raise collective consciousness. Absolutely. To facilitate the realization of untapped potential, which is also just another word for raising collective consciousness. And in fact, Sharon, I think making it personal is also about consciousness. And so when you talk about race-based programs, for me, what's personal? It is collective consciousness, because who we are being on our level of consciousness are the results we are creating. Oh, kitty. The kitty just knocked over my timeline and my PowerPoint printout. So give me a moment.
Sure, of course.
I mean, Poro, you need to stop that now, or I need to lock you out.
Yeah,
This
Ursula and I were talking before the rest of you came on about cats. As some of the people who are on here know about me, I have 4 cats, a dog, and also a desert tortoise. The desert tortoise is always outside, but the cats always like to come into the room. And when they hear me talking, they're like, "Oh, Daryl wants to talk to us." It's like, no, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to my friends here on this Zoom meeting. So Ursula, we all understand the joys and sometimes the problems of pets. So
All right, they are all locked out now. They are all locked out. They will have to wait for attention and snuggles. This is not a good idea.
And if I may just say about my coaching, because my coaching niche is grief coaching, and I got into that during COVID. I did a 9-month PCC level training. Wasn't planning on doing that kind of as my main thing, but as I've been doing that more, it's really becoming my main clients have been that, and grief from all sorts of things. So again,
Yeah.
it's personal to an extent, I guess, like Sharon has said, but it's also just being available, being an open ear for people who want to share and vent or whatever is going on in their lives. And maybe they don't have that because maybe their loved ones or spouses or significant others and friends are like, I don't want to hear any more about this. Just deal with it, and being available for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Daryl. And what you're talking about is really part of those 4 different factors that we're going to look at in a moment. So Laura is saying, yes, to raising consciousness, and it lights me up to play a role in this. And when we look at the world at large, we know that the accomplishment of goals, whatever there might be, that's one thing. But what is more important is that we help our clients realize their untapped potential and realize that higher levels of consciousness could potentially be a contributor to love and peace in the world, and a world that is more united rather than divided. So, so let's take a look at what we mean by all of this. Yeah, what if we really were up to increasing consciousness? And here's a quote from Albert Einstein: "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." So we need to raise that in order to find solutions, for the world. So in terms of human development, and particularly for us at Be Above, we don't think so much about it as a sort of an on and off switch. We think about it in terms of levels of consciousness, and levels of consciousness that are part of an increasingly regulated and stabilized and complex system. Now, don't worry, you do not need to remember any of that. It's by way of saying that brain and body, soul, heart, spirit is a system, and it is a complex system. And the more we regulate this system, the more integrated it becomes, the more stable it becomes, the more our levels of consciousness will increase. And the impact of that is more long-term life-affirming results. And the 4 factors critical in raising the level of consciousness, whatever level it might be, is first realization, which we as coaches do to perfection. It's creating awareness. Realization is number 1. When we realize what's going on in the system, then we can regulate our nervous system, the biochemicals that are in the system. If we don't realize what's going on from a neuroscience and holistic perspective as it relates to the system, we can't regulate. We can only regulate that of which we are aware of. And then we look at integration. So it's not just, okay, I have realization and regulation as it relates to dealing with my boss. Well, what about your spouse, your partner, your teenage son, daughter, cousin, client, whoever, the cab driver? It doesn't matter. How do you integrate it? So all the parts of your life become linked. They are no longer separate, but they are integrated into the system of realization, regularization, and they're all connected. And then through repetition and long-term coaching, we eventually will get the system stabilized so that when the either real or metaphorical hurricane of life is tossing you around, the system will stay stable. So your recovery to the outside influences of life and crisis will maybe wobble the system a little bit, but you will find your way, and the clients will find our way back to a somewhat stable ground. They won't get tossed around. We won't get tossed around. And if we get tossed around, we will recover much quicker to a more regulated state. And so these pieces are not like separate or like they're not in an order or a hierarchy. They build on each other. And they're both indicators and ways to develop higher levels of consciousness. When we're talking about levels of consciousness, and I am going to do this very, very high level, because just talking about the 7 levels alone would take 2, 3, 4 hours. But the concept of saying, okay, consciousness is not an on and off switch. We think of it in terms of levels. This is a model that Anne and I created about 20 years ago, researching what is consciousness and how does it relate to the brain? How does it relate to the body? What is going on when we talk about higher levels? And so you can see that what we call the below the line levels, which is hopelessness, fear, and frustration, are the levels where the system is not regulated. And then above the line, which starts at the level of courage, as you see in the shading of the V, the system becomes more and more regulated. The brain and body become more integrated. The system talks to each other, and therefore we are able to be more courageous, to be more in engagement, and to be more innovative, and maybe on occasion touch the level of synchronicity, even if it's only for a moment. And the recovery from below the line to above the line happens faster when we have realization and regulation. And stabilization will keep us more above the line, will keep us more in an effective state. So when we talk about levels, for us, this is the roadmap that we refer to. And of course, you might have other roadmaps, other modalities, but when we talk about consciousness and levels, that's what we're thinking of. So in the previous slide, realization of that's coaching at its best. Awareness, bringing things into presence, things that are unconscious, bringing them into consciousness. And regulation is managing the biochemicals in the body, which is recovering from stresses, managing activations, managing frustration, fear, and hopelessness. If you go back to the 7 levels, it's managing the input of those, metaphorical hurricane forces, managing that, noticing from realization and going to regulation, thinking, oh, what do I need to do to stay regulated? And then integration is more personally and also with one another, become more integrated, which means we are differentiated. So, I am different from Kyla. Kyla knows who he is. I know who I am. I know my values. He knows his values. We're differentiated, but we are open, hopefully, to each other's values. And that openness creates linkage. So what I would like you to do just for a moment is look at my gestures. Gestures are a great way to solidify learning. So this is differentiated. So I'd like you to put your thumb and index finger together and hold your hands separately. This is what differentiation is, whether it's values, perspectives, vision, personal differentiation. And in order to link, we have to be open. We can't link when we're closed up. We have to be open to someone else's perspective. We have to be open to someone else's values, viewpoints. And when this is linked, this creates integration. And you can see this particularly in relationships. Relationships that are really well integrated, it's where 2 people or multiple people in a team know who they are, lean into that, but are also open to the strengths and assets of other people. They're aware of their own weaknesses. They're aware and include the weaknesses of others. And that openness creates integration. And then as we keep wiring in new habits, behaviors, neuroplasticity, the repetition of focusing again and again and again on these new thoughts, these new behaviors, the different areas of self-regulation, every time we do this and do that over long periods of time, that gets hardwired in, and that creates stabilization. The system will become more stabilized when we do it through practice. And again, these factors build upon each other and are interrelated. They are both indicators of higher levels of consciousness and ways to develop it. I'm going to stop here for a moment. And what makes sense to you about this? What's familiar? What makes sense? Like, what are you pondering? Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
I just look at these 4 phases and I see myself and all the work that I've done. I was just thinking this morning that I have a very carefully curated way of being, and it took a lot of work, but man, I feel so stable and more myself than ever. It's been a path of years, decades, and it's nice to see it in the 4 steps. So thank you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's what I aim to do with my clients, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's cool to see myself in there and just how far I've come.
Yeah, and how and how good it feels. So, Laura, what's been the impact on your life during this, this journey of saying, I can really see I have a largely a stabilized system. What's the benefit?
Well, if we go back, I was an active alcoholic, and that was all fear and hiding, right? And then that began the path. I've been sober 20 years. And so I was full of fear. I was very closed off from people.
Yeah.
I was very judgmental, and I was successful at the same time, interestingly, right, in my career until the end days. And now, and so there were some things along the way that really deepened my ability to just be open to others, to own who I am, perceived faults and all, just really own. And it's just a sense of peace, and I feel equipped for anything, right? And you mentioned synchronicity, and you know, in this state, I have access to amazing intuition. I have crazy synchronicities, right? So I feel like my life has become magical because of this path.
Yep. And what you're speaking to, Laura, so beautifully is that when we talk about raising the level of consciousness and a system that's stabilized, it is effective.
Oh,
Not
unbelievable.
some lovely, fluffy little thing that's good to have. It's effective. It is less input, greater output.
Yeah.
It's
yes, and things are more easeful and graceful.
More easeful.
Yeah.
You know, you're still working hard, but it is easier, and
Yes.
the output, you know, is greater with, you know, with more fun and all of that. And certainly, you know, the challenges that are coming at us when the system is more stabilized, you said that beautifully, we feel equipped to face whatever is coming. So yeah, beautiful. Yes, Louise.
Thank you.
Hi. You know, I looked at this and I used it in my marriage. I'm married 60 years. It's going to be 61 years to the same guy without killing him, and him killing me. But I looked at it, and this feeling of still is beautiful. When you get to this, it's a friend, you know, one of my friends that I was with recently, I'm with her as a friend for 67 years. And so I'm giving away my really old age. Well, coaching keeps you young.
Yes.
Loving keeps you young.
Yes.
It keeps you busy. It keeps you on. You have to keep moving forward if you're going to help people.
Yes.
So for me, where I am now is if I'm in the room with my husband, we don't even have to say a sound.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And even now that we ran into some financial difficulty, we feel the strength that we built together. And like I said to my friend, she lost her husband in Vietnam. He was my daughter's godfather, and she's my daughter's godmother. She says, I wish that I had what you had. And of course, my heart cries for that, because we were children together and this happened. I just feel very blessed that, you know, I have this. But what I said to her is, Pat, it wasn't a walk in the park.
No, and I
think you're going through this, and it's like, oh, what a walk in the park. No.
no, that's you know, I think, Louise, that's really a really good point, which really points to stabilization. You do not do that in a day or a month. It can take years, and more for most of us. And I think certainly for us as coaches, and I include all of you, our journey to transformation has taken years, and it is continued to take years. I do not assume that I am at the end of stabilization. You know, I mean, excuse my French, shit happens. And
That's right.
just when I think, oh, you know, I'm sort of cruising along and isn't it great? And no, boom, there comes the challenge. And that is where the rubber meets the road. How stabilized is the system? How can I come back to a place that feels stable? So let's take a look now. So thanks, Louise. Absolutely, that is beautiful. So realization, obviously, you see the iceberg in coaching. A lot of what is happening in the client's life tends to be under the water, tends to be not conscious. And in coaching, we bring it to the surface. And it really is, coaching can really be translated as positive neuroplasticity. And it's self-directed. I should add that to the slide here. It is self-directed positive neuroplasticity. We are not doing it for the client. The client does it themselves. That's self-directed, and it is positive, and it is constantly a rewiring of habits, actions, thoughts, beliefs that no longer serves them. It's brought to the surface, and therefore, when it is on the surface, it can be changed. And so that is what we really do well in coaching. And here is how we do it. Reflective listening, disruptive questions and inquiries. So we take the client's brain to novelty, not the usual. So the disruptive helps the brain go to, oh, this is a new behavior. This is a new question. I've never thought about that, which creates new neural connections. And that is what the brain needs. We explore values on purpose, perspectives. We work with the body intelligence. We're holding their dreams. What else do you do, and what would you like to try in terms of realization and awareness? So here is, I'm sure you all do this already. Share what you already do, and what would you like to try or do more of in terms of sort of getting this iceberg lifted up a little bit so more comes into awareness. What would you like to do more of, or try something different or new? Or share what you do really well.
To get us started, I think that something simple like we all do is just give space. So much can happen in silence.
Really nice. Yes, I like that. It's giving space and given silence and pause. So many of my clients run on the go, on the go, on the go, and hitting that pause button. And, I don't know about you, Robert, but my experience is just when I think they have nothing to say, they come up with something really brilliant.
100%. Almost every time.
Almost every time. Almost every time. If I can just be patient enough and hold. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. What else? What do you do already that you do well? Bringing into awareness, bringing to realization. That's either on the list or wasn't on the list.
Alice, I hate to talk again, but I think maybe a lot of coaches come into business because they want to save people. And I have to remind myself that I'm not there to save them. And so the silence that Robert mentioned, which I have to piggyback on, is so important. But also, I will write, if I know there's one of my clients that I'm feeling this nurturing thing coming up, I will put a note on my desk. When I speak to them, you're not there to save them. Keep quiet.
You know, I really love that. This is a good heads up for anybody, I think, you know, in the world, because there's too many people wanting to fix and advise people. But I think it is this is actually a really good point, Louise, in terms of realization. And in terms of the brain, what we want is we want the neurons to fire in their brain, not in our brain. So when we give advice or we tell them what they should do, what happens is the neurons fire in our brain, but it doesn't fire in theirs. And so the question and the silence and whatever tool or, you know, road we are choosing in terms of asking and waiting, that will create firing in their brain. And that is what's important. Yeah, thank you. Sharon, go ahead.
You ask about what I do well and how that feels. My strength is my authenticity, but it's also raw, and it leaves me open. And because I've chosen the niche that I have, it means that I'm listening to things that touch me in ways that sometimes hurt. But I recognize in order to do what I'm trying to do, I need to not let that hurt show in my words or in my face, but I also need to let my client know that it is a hurt, that some of the things that they do unconsciously,
Yep.
some of the things that they do that they believe are complimentary,
Yep.
are not.
Yep.
And they won't understand that unless someone can say to them, without it being putting them in a defensive mode, without making them feel guilty, that what you just did sucked.
Yeah.
In a major way to those who you are trying to communicate with.
Yes.
But in order for me to be able to do that and to stay authentic, it means that I have to leave myself open. And that rawness sometimes means that after sessions are over, after the client leaves, that I have to remember that I am special, that I am who I am, and that I have a strength that's been given to me.
Yes.
And to feel comfortable with using it
in
the way that I've chosen to use it.
Very nice. Beautiful. Thank you. What you're speaking to is raising the level of confirmation bias, because most of us have blind spots somewhere, because the brain is always looking for the reasons to justify our behavior that we're right. That goes on all the time. In everything we do, the brain is looking for, you did that because, you know, of course you're right. Rather than going, it's like, well, is this a bias? Are you looking for confirmation that you're right? Or are you looking at what is the truth here and you're digging into it? And so that is such an iceberg, Sharon. It's a huge iceberg that's underneath the water are our various biases, whatever there might be. So I really love what you're pointing to in terms of realization. It's a big point. So thank you for that. Okay, let's go to regulation. So a stronger connection between the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive brain, CEO of the brain often called, that sits right behind your forehead and is really implicated in goal direction, clarity, motivation, inspiration, empathy, and memory. The strong connection between your executive function and the limbic regions, which are implicated in the more frustration, fear, hopelessness, say, shame, anxiety. So those limbic regions there can really upset the apple cart. They can take us out of stabilization. But when we have a very regulated prefrontal cortex that is in a just right zone, we have the clarity, the empathy, the goal direction, and the memory that creates a sort of a, it's almost like the prefrontal cortex is the lighthouse. It gives us the light that something is happening in our emotional system that we need to be aware of, but not react to. And so that smart part of your brain is regulating the limbic areas that are implicated in all kinds of emotions. And I want to make sure we understand this here absolutely correctly. The amygdala and the concept of amygdala hijack is actually a myth. The brain is a system. Various parts of the brain and the body are implicated in any emotion, including fear. Actually, research shows that the amygdala only gets activated like about 15% of the time when we talk about fear response. So there are some schools of thought that still talk about the brain as sort of the three-layer cake, the mammalian brain, and then you have your smart brain, and then you have an amygdala hijack, and your prefrontal cortex gets shut off, and you're at the mercy of your emotions. That is not correct. The research of Lisa Feldman Barrett, and I'm going to put her name in the chat because this is not only absolutely fascinating and flabbergasting, but she's just fabulous. Her research has shown, and this is tens of thousands of people of all backgrounds and ages. Her research shows that the brain is a system and it relies on context, previous experience, history, and the current goal. And the brain basically predicts what is going to happen next, which then creates an emotion. And I'm going to put that in the chat as soon as I'm done with this slide. So therefore, the prefrontal cortex and the limbic areas, they need to talk to each other as part of the system. And therefore, that helps regulate when we get an emotion that feels threatening in whatever form. Can be an email, can be a conversation, can be anything. And so again, going back to Lisa Feldman Barrett's research, not only is emotional intelligence a critical factor, but we can only regulate that which we are aware of. And she says granularity is very important. And what she means by that is the more we can define and refine what we feel, not just happy, sad, mad, or glad, but sentences, metaphors, examples, whole, it could be another language. That granularity then will help our emotional intelligence and will help us regulate. So as we build emotional vocabulary, our ability to regulate increases. This is why we ask our clients, how do you feel? And please give me a little bit more than just happy or sad. What else? What else is there? What's a metaphor for it? What's a color? Where do you feel it? And strong emotions activate biochemicals such as cortisol and adrenaline that impact our ability to be calm, have empathy, clarity, and be focused and motivated. And how do we do this in coaching? Monitor and modify is a sentence that was created by Dr. Dan Siegel, who is really the sort of the original researcher and deep neuroscientist and therapist who created the concept of brain integration. He's the writer of a book called Mindsight, plus a whole bunch of other books. And he says coaching for regulation is monitor and modify. And that makes complete sense. It's check in, monitor, how are you feeling? What are you feeling? And what do you need to modify in this moment? Where is your little ship? Where's it tilting? And we help our clients do that. We help them monitor and modify. What can you do differently? What was that like? Blah, blah, blah. Helping client identify and manage their stress. Prefrontal cortex hugely impacted by either too much stress or not enough. Boredom or overwhelm have a huge impact on prefrontal cortex regulation. Impact. Is this the impact you want? And if not, what is the impact you want? And what is the cause of being emotionally dysregulated? How come? And what is the cost? So when you think about regulation, monitoring, self-regulation, checking in with the system, knowing where you're sort of heading in terms of being dysregulated or, activated in some form, frustration and worry, whatever it might be. What is a metaphor that describes a regulated state that will help your client with this concept of regulation? Yes, Laura, go ahead.
Thank you. I have two. The one I like is the deep ocean, because the deep ocean is still, right? It is still. There's some creepy creatures down there. But anyway, it's super still, and all hell could be breaking loose on the surface, and that ocean is not going to move. And so people relate with that. And the other is the other way around. When we're on an airplane, you can have horrible clouds, right? But as you raise, the sun is always shining, right? So I prefer the deep ocean. They tend to relate better with that, but both of those seem to work.
Yeah, and the deep ocean, what I really like about, you're quite right. There could be some things in the deep ocean that we don't want to encounter, but that's also true for life. As we're diving deeper into the ocean, we come across things that we really maybe don't want to encounter, but they're still there. And so can we stay in the deep, calm ocean, or are we getting propelled to the surface where the waves are, 10 feet high? So I love that. Beautiful. Yeah. What other metaphors come to mind? Lori, how about you? A regulated state. What's coming to you?
Well, I think people misuse balance a lot of times. So I move them more into harmony and alignment, so that if your whole energy body, like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, is aligned, your chakras are aligned. I mean, I try not to use like triggering words if they're not ready for like some of them.
Right.
But that your mind is not overtaking the heart, and so that they're all like kind of in a peaceful harmony state. So
yes. Yeah, I like the word alignment. And I like the balance, because balance is not rigid. Balance is movement where we have some control, for a better word. If you think about a surfboard or a pedal board, a pedal board moves, but you have to move with it, or you're going to fall into the water. Yeah, I like that.
I feel globally like we are so in our head, like the like everybody's there. I have to get people out of their head first and into their body and feeling their emotions, because we can't just go to where you are right now. They have to like understand their saboteurs or the self-talk or wherever, and get them into like the feeling state of the body, because they're like shut off, and also to hope for the future too, because without that they don't want to shut down the brain.
Yeah.
So, and I do use the prefrontal cortex, and it's interesting, but I'm curious about like your amygdala and the limbic regions, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. I use something really simple, because when they are there, they cannot talk about neuroplasticity, like all of the things that we're talking about here. They're not going to read the books. You have to like get them out in a really simple way, a doable way, because otherwise it adds to their overwhelm.
Yeah, and I think certainly understanding what's happening in their brain and in their body when they're in that state can definitely normalize it. And that is one of the things I have found really helpful, saying to clients, the reason why you suddenly lost empathy, and you become impatient and you're losing things and you can't find what you need, is because of an overwhelm of, too many stresses. And, and saying to them, that is normal because your prefrontal cortex is overloaded with dopamine and norepinephrine, and it tilts your brain to one side. And so the key is figuring out what can you eliminate that is a stressor, or reduce something that will slowly take you back into more of this just right zone. Because I find that, including myself, that when I feel, I should be able to do one more thing, and I can't figure out why I don't have the capacity anymore to do this one more thing, it helps me to go, well, it's just because you are just about to leave your just right zone. You're already tilting. If you do this one more thing, you're going to tip over the curve, and then you will not have your smart brain in place anymore. And that has helped me not to be so judgmental about myself. I've given myself a lot more grace, because for me now it is like I need to stay in the just right zone, because that's where I'm effective. As soon as I'm heading either into boredom or into overwhelm, I'm not effective anymore, and I don't want that. So I have to make sure that whatever is happening in my life, I manage this zone best that I can. And that relates to all aspects of the brain and the body. Knowing what's going on helps us be gentler with ourselves and other people.
Mm-hmm.
When I have my adult daughters being in crisis and freaking out, I know it's because they're overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not personal. They're just trying to hang on by their fingernails, raising 2 little kids and having 2 full-time jobs, a big house and a yard.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, that really helps letting go of saying it's normal. It's just the way it is, because the biochemicals flood the system and we lose capacity. So I've put in the chat Lisa Feldman Barrett's name and her book, it's actually 7.5 lessons. I beg your pardon. It's 7.5 lessons from the brain. It's a little book. And then she has a bigger version of this, and it is called The Secret Life of the Brain: How Emotions Are Constructed. I highly recommend either 7.5 lessons from the brain or the full version. It's really, really illuminating. And she's a great writer. She's got a couple of TED Talks. If you don't want the book, she's a great speaker, a delightful woman. And the research is absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, let's see. We'll move on. move on to the next stage, which is integration. So thank you for the metaphor. So integration personally and interpersonally. And here's Dr. Dan Siegel again. He defines integration, that's brain integration, as the linkage of differentiated elements. So we go back to differentiation. The elements are differentiated. You have an apple and an orange. They are clearly an apple and an orange. That's differentiated. And in order to link the elements, they have to be open. The metaphor we use in our program for integration is the orchestra of the orchestra of your brain. Each part of the system is a musical instrument in the system of you that is the orchestra. They're all differentiated. They all need to be well trained. The violinist needs to know how to play the violin well. The same with the piano and the flute and all those instruments. And then as they start playing, they need to listen to the other instruments and what they're up to. The flute can't just do flute things. The flute needs to be open to the piano and the violin and going like, am I in harmony? Am I loud enough? Am I quiet? Do I need to bring it on? Do I need to step back? And that is exactly what's happening in the system of brain and body. The different parts of your brain need to be well trained, neuroplasticity, need to be strong, and the different parts of your brain need to be able to listen to the other parts. Where am I right now? Am I in structure or am I in freedom? That's hemisphere. Am I in rigidity or am I in chaos? That's hemispheres ineffective. Am I feeling chaotic? Okay. What part of my orchestra do I need right now to not be in chaos? And so that differentiation and linkage creates really good, strong integration. And once that's done, the levels of consciousness will be easier to access. And it is the yes of life. These are different aspects of ourselves in connection with each other, whether that's values or, you know, passion, meaning, and also it's also interpersonal. And research shows that integration is key to effectiveness, whether it's leadership, integration, creativity, and productivity. They need to talk to each other, or it will not be effective. You can't just have creativity without productivity or vice versa. And the different parts of potential integration from a neuroscience perspective are right and left hemisphere, which is structure or big picture thinking, which is the right, and network integration, which is either focus or motivation. And so this needs to be harmonized. There's brain and body, and then we talked about prefrontal cortex and limbic areas. Those are all potential areas of integration. And how do we do that in coaching? We help people differentiate. And I think maybe it was Lori who talked. Did you talk a minute ago about saboteurs? Maybe somebody talked about, you know, saboteurs. Well, limiting belief saboteurs, we help our clients differentiate. This is a limiting belief. This is a saboteur, gremlin, the nasty voice in your head, whatever you want to call it. And it is not you. It is differentiated from you. And you have different voices. Values, purpose, again, vision, different aspects that are differentiated and then brought together on a vision board. Inside team, inner leader, internal family systems. How can this be differentiated? Because once you see them as the orange and the apple, then you can put them in the bowl of life and you see, just to mix up metaphors even more, then you see that you have a fruit salad, not a smoothie. When they're not differentiated, stuff is a smoothie. You might be detect that there's a banana in it because they're in a smoothie that sort of stand out. But beyond that, do you know if there's, you know, a strawberry in there or a pineapple or a kiwi? Probably not. So differentiation creates a fruit salad. You can see the different pieces and you can see how they're brought together in the bowl of life. Needs, ideas, viewpoints. How can you meet your needs? What do you need to ask for? That is also integration personally and interpersonally, while honoring the needs of others. And then resolving all the internal dilemmas, you know, saboteurs we talked about. So here's the question, if you want to share, where do you feel you are integrated in your life and where might you not be as much? Where are you integrated? Where are you differentiated and linked? And where are you maybe not as much? And it's not a black and white. It's, you know, it's obviously complex. Yes, Sharon.
I'm very integrated with my family.
Mm.
We are very close, even though we don't live necessarily in the same cities, but we get together on a regular basis. We are integrated in the sense that we understand each other. It's almost like the fruit salad. I mean, we're different, but we have the same values, basically. We don't all think alike.
Yeah.
We don't feel alike. But our value system is very, very similar, even though it's not identical.
Yes.
And the way we see the world is different, but it's from the same perspective, basically. So
Well,
I feel integrated there.
Yeah, you're open to each other's different perspectives and different viewpoints, while at the same time, you know, sharing something that feels aligned and alike.
But outside of my family, in this world where judgments and or behaviors and or things that I do can mean so much different than what I mean it to.
Yes.
The way I wear my hair, the color of my skin, my age, there's a lot of things about me that make me feel that I'm not integrated into the community that I belong.
Yes.
And I might be more so than I'm aware. But when you talk about the integration and you're talking about self, if I don't feel the inclusivity, if I don't feel the belonging, then for someone to tell me I am included and I do belong, it's bullshit. Because I can't
doesn't mean anything. No,
it's just words. And until I feel it, it's not real.
No.
So that's the world. That's where I don't feel the same kind of integration I do when I'm around my family.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice. Beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. That's very, very well put and very, very clear. I really appreciate that. Yeah, what else? Where do you feel integrated and where not as much? I'm sort of looking for myself. I mean, I think I feel very integrated in terms of, you know, my, you know, meaning and purpose and, you know, where I spend my energy, where I spend my time. You know, my husband said to me, you know, when I was whining, about, oh, you know, there's this and there's that, and, you know, maybe I should just, you know, retire. And he just looked at me and with his, you know, sort of brow, going like, and he said, but you find time for everything. So basically saying to me, what is your problem? And I went like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I've managed to sort of be able to spend time with the things that matter to me. So that's where I'm integrated. Where I'm disintegrated is there's an area like I would like to really get through my book list more. I have a whole list of interesting books that I really want to get through, and it's differentiated, but it's not integrated because this is one more thing that I just don't seem to rope in. So there they are, got to page 30 on that one, got to page 40 on that one, haven't started that one. So that is a piece of integration that need to move that in more. Yeah.
I could share that my wife and I are very integrated, particularly as we empty nest and start talking about what's next for us, our next stage of life. And it's interesting because before we became empty nesters, our family was very integrated. And both my girls are now in college and working on their master's program and living their own lives. So they are starting to become differentiated from us as a family unit, but we're still trying to work to keep them integrated at the same time. So it can be very challenging.
Yes. That resonates. Completely. Our youngest daughter is the mother of our two grandchildren, and they are now 7 and 10. And I have noticed just in the last couple of months that even that integration of those of our granddaughters who were so integrated with us, as they are getting older now and they're moving out into the world of friendships, they are really, really getting differentiated. And I'm beginning to feel slight moments of panic. I can only describe it as panic, where I go,
I can understand.
oh, this is painful. I used to be your bestie. Our 10-year-old, when she was like 2, she would give me a big hug and she would say, oh you are my bestie. And I would think, let's see how long that goes on for. And here we are, right? Exactly. So to Sharon's point, feeling the pain and then thinking, I wonder what that means. And so the boat starts wobbling, and then it's like, okay, I need to find a place of regulation here by saying that's life, and my love for them will continue even when they start moving out. They will always hold this very, very special place in my heart, no matter how old they will get, and let's see what happens. But I totally get that. So thank you for sharing, everyone. That's very, very sweet. All right, well, let's go to stabilization. It's not enough to just have insights and moments of higher awareness of consciousness. We need to create a system that is stabilized. And so realization, regulation, the ability to notice and recover become ever more important in our own lives as well as in the coaching process. And strengthening those neural pathways of new behaviors, of new realizations, strengthening that through repetition and practice is really the mechanism by which we stabilize the system. It's both continuing the pathway of, I'm realizing this. Here's what's needed. Here's what I'm aware of. Here's the pain I feel. But instead of reacting to the separation of myself with, to Kennedy, it's saying, and I'm noticing the pain. I'm noticing that I want to tilt and hold on. And that needs to be regulated. And so the practice of that I am in the process of at this moment in time will eventually create a more stabilized place as it relates to this topic. I hope. We can only hope. And then the more we practice, we wire in higher levels of effectiveness. We have more access to courage, engagements, innovation, and synchronicity. And over time, that will feel more normal to us and less of a struggle. Oh, there it is. Coaching is a form of self-directed neuroplasticity. We encourage clients to experiment and try new things. Novelty is one of the key factors to neuroplasticity. There's novelty, there is relationships, there is being multisensory, so making your coaching multisensory. Those are all part of the 7 key factors to neuroplasticity that make new behavior stickier. And so trying new things, novelty, that inspiration, that experimentation is part of creating, stickier neural pathways. Inspiration and action, both. What are you motivated by? What is true for you? What's inspiring? What is fun? What actions can you take? And then there's really this action reflection cycle that we do so well in coaching is like, here's your assignment, debrief, assignment, debrief, assignment, reflect on it. That creates neuroplasticity. And it also lets clients make mistakes, which is another key factor to neuroplasticity. It's actually absolutely essential that we make mistakes, because if you don't, then it's not novel. Mistakes show us we're on a new road. And so that reflection cycle helps the brain stay on a neural pathway that's effective, so that we're not repeating the mistakes, the things that we really don't want to wire in. Learn from mistakes, celebrating successes. And so stabilization. So now we are going to embodiment. So if you are open and willing and ready, you can, switch off your video if you're not comfortable. I like you to stand up and feel stabilization as it shows up in your body. Some kind of a posture, hand movement, whatever it might be. And I will stand up with you. Oh, this feels good. I've been sitting way too long today. Stabilization embodied. All right. And you can either come back and sit down or stay standing, whatever feels comfortable. So what is it like to stand in stabilization?
Well, for me, it felt so good in my back because I'm having a whole lot of problems with sciatica and arthritis in my spine.
Yeah, so standing
No, a
straight.
lot of it is pressure. The mind is that
Yeah.
strong, as we all know.
Yeah.
And that felt so damn good. I gotta tell you, I can go dancing right now.
Well, then practice stabilization a lot. Practice it, stand there. This is a great way. You know, again, Mandy Blake, the body is your brain. The body has information and it remembers and recognizes. So once you have sort of locked into the feeling, the embodiment of stabilization, when you get there again, when you go there again, the body will automatically recognize, oh, we are now in stabilization. And so the body will send messages to the brain. Funnily enough, the body has more information than our thinking heads. And it will send that message to your brain going, you are now ready for stabilization. So that embodiment, that posture can really be helpful when we start feeling a little out of sorts. And it will help us sort of get us back to that. Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, what else? What else? What did it feel like to stand in stabilization?
Very sturdy and stable. So able to take on anything coming at me.
Yes. Yep. So again, when you need it, tap into that. Beautiful.
Felt trustable, trustworthy.
Trustworthy. Yes. Yes. That is a really, really good word for stabilization. Here I can trust myself, and that is because you're regulated. People that are think about friends that you have that know how to self-regulate. They're trustworthy. And think about people that are not regulated, that are dysregulated. They are not trustworthy. You would most likely not share your most, heartfelt sentiments, both good, bad, and everything in between, with a dysregulated person because you don't know what you're getting. With a regulated person, it is trustworthy. Absolutely. I really, really love that. So we've been through the four parts. And brain integration, the power of yes, and the brain sees values. So values is one part of where we can differentiate and link, and where we can integrate. And values work is really, this is what we all do with our clients already. We look at values, especially when values are in conflict. So the brain sees values either as honoring structure and details, or it sees values as big picture and freedom. So it's left hemisphere and right hemisphere values. They are different. Now, for the point of this exercise and the tool, don't worry too much about it. Anytime when a value is in conflict, it will work. This tool will work. So this tool is called valuegration. So what we do is we combine two values that are in conflict and we create a new value. But it is a value that most likely does not yet exist in the English dictionary. And here is an example. So we're going to do this as a group. I think we have time. Yes, we have time for that. We're going to do this as a group. But before we do this, I'm going to show you the examples. You get a picture of what this will look like. So here's my example. My values conflict is between having an impact and depth and fun and ease. So I looked at that and I thought, so how can I have impact and how can I have fun at the same time? So impact integrated with ease, the new value-graded word is impease. Part of impact and part of ease. Those two put together create now a linked, they were differentiated, fun, impact, differentiated, and now we link them. And in order to create a value-graded and linked value, we need to combine these two words in some form. Now, I could have gone fun pact. I could have done ease pact. I could have done ease. I mean, there's various forms of value grading, but when I stood in, okay, here's impact, that's what this feels like. Here's fun, this is what this feels like. And when I went to impese, it felt like it got locked in. It was like, it felt stable. I had this stable feeling of, okay, that is integration. And what is created in the brain is impact. I already have lots of neural pathways in here, wired in here. Fun and ease, I've got lots of different neural pathways in there. But I don't have any neural pathways for MPs because they're constantly fighting with each other. Laura thinks it's hilarious. Do you like my word, MPs? So MPs now it's two new neurons firing. The brain has no idea what to do with it because there is nothing in here yet. There isn't a neural pathway. It's not even a dirt road. It's full of potholes and trees and undergrowth. But the more I stand and work with MPs and live it and live into it, the more that neural pathway of MPs will grow, and over time, there won't be a conflict anymore. So you would need a pen and paper because you will need to write down your two words and make a new word out of it, and it helps having it in front of you. So let's go back to the instructions. So I like you all to find a place where two values feel like they're in conflict. So just sort of feel yourself into that. What is one word that best describes this value? And what is it in conflict with? And in a moment, I'm going to have a couple of people just shout out the two values that are in conflict. So write them down. Here's what I think it is. It could be productivity and fun. It could be accomplishment and ease. It could be creativity and productivity. It could be, I mean, I don't know, expertise and humbleness. It could be spirituality and logic. It could be wisdom and curiosity. So find these two words that are in conflict. Okay, who can shout out some or put them in the chat? That will also work. What are two values? Daryl, how about you? Two values that seem to be in conflict. What are they?
I think mine are freedom and then commitments.
Great. Freedom, right hemisphere. Commitment, left hemisphere. Commitment is very specific, detail-oriented. Freedom is big picture, open heart. That's all right hemisphere. So we have freedom and commitment, and you can make a value-graded word out of that one in a minute.
What I made, I thought using commitment as the first word didn't sound right with the end of freedom, so I won't go there.
Yes,
So I was thinking free mittments.
yes, free commitment. Yes, free commitment is great. Yes, so free commitment. Kyla, adventure versus familiarity. Oh, great. Kyla, can you come off mute
Sure.
and actually say it?
Adventiarity.
Oh, how
Yeah,
does
sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, how does adventurarity feel like? I love
Feels
that.
like a certain like lightness or excitement and just becoming familiar with adventure and novelty, like feeling secure in the unknown.
Yes, having both adventure, but what I'm making up about it, Kyla, is
Mhm.
not getting freaked out by the complete
Yeah.
So having familiarity and adventure and have this be adventurarity
Yeah.
is
Strike that
lovely.
balance of like flow in between the overwhelm of too much adventure and the boredom
Yep.
of too much familiarity.
Yes, yes, bringing that into just right. That's beautiful. Laurie has teach and grace, which is taste, tease,
TAs.
TAs. Oh, it's TAs. TDAs. Ace it, Laurie. Oh, lovely. Privacy and openness for Laura, which is OpenSea. Oh, that's lovely. You know, when you hit that integrated, value-graded word, it has a ring to it. It has a rhythm to it. It's like, you know it's right. Robert, responsibility and self-care. Self-ability. Yes. Yup. That's lovely. Sharon, how about you? Did you come up with something?
Spontaneity and organization.
Oh, good one. And the word is?
Spontaneization.
Spontaneization. Yes.
Spontaneization. Yeah.
You, ladies and gentlemen, are the value creation king and queens today. That is great. I love it. So then what you do is you write this new word down. You can make a collage from it. You can draw a picture from it. Put it somewhere where you can see it. And then when you come across a challenge, you go to, so for example, for Robert, it's like, okay, in terms of this topic, how can I bring self-ability to it? In terms of this topic, how can I bring OpenSea? In terms of this relationship, how can I bring OpenSea to it? So you use that value-graded word when you come across a challenge, a topic, and you apply that. And my request to you would be to make a picture of it, because that multi-sensory thing really, really works. Brenda, giving and achieving. Giving. Oh gosh, I love it. I just love it. Production. Oh, I love that's really cool as well. Yeah, but and you can go endlessly. This is actually a really good party game. Pour a glass of wine, have a cocktail, and say to people, what are your two values that are in conflict? Let's make a value-graded word. Anne and I did that at a Midwest conference, and we gave everybody stickers saying, you've been value-graded. That was so fun. Anyway, we are 4 minutes away from the end of our adventure into neuroscience. You have been so fun. Thank you so much for your presence. If you have any questions about our advanced coaching program certification, go to the Be Above Leadership website or contact me, Ursula@beaboveleadership.com.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ursula, on behalf of ICF Orange County and our chapter and our members and the guests today. Thank you for being with us. I did just put in the chat room the link to our events page on our ICFOrangeCounty.org website for some upcoming events. So I just want to take a minute or two here just to kind of share some of those upcoming events. First, next Tuesday, for those who are local, we have our monthly mixer. This is going to be down in San Juan Capistrano on October 8th at 5:30 p.m. Also, that same day, I think we have a multi-chapter event with Rich Litvin. And so that also is on the website. You can find that and register for that. Later this month, we have our chapter meeting at Hera Hub in Irvine. And Dr. Sharon White, if you don't mind, would you just mind sharing about that event? Because we have a panel discussion for that chapter event. By the way, Dr. Sharon is our DEIB director on the board, so I didn't mention that earlier. So
now you know why my subjects come up the way they do.
I love it. I love it, Sharon.
Okay, but anyway, the meeting on the 17th, which is a panel, the focus is on niches. And the panelists, the three of them, have three different niches which are totally and completely unrelated to each other. And what the outcome is supposed to be, or what the takeaways are, is why niches are important. How do you select a niche? What are the pros and cons of niches? And can you do well without one? And there's a lot of our members who are still struggling with that in terms of trying to narrow what it is that they're doing in order to be able to be as effective as they want to be. And so we've chosen this topic because we hope that it will help our members to be able to draw the information from the panelists and to make decisions for themselves that'll make their business better and more rewarding. And if possible, more profitable.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. I figured having you do that, since you're going to be hosting that or moderating that conversation, I was so glad that you were here today so that you could share that. Of course, if you go to that link, there are other things coming up in November and even up into December. So just for those who want to join some of our things. And I also, on behalf of Rania Sultan, who is our program director, who was not able to be here today, so I filled in for her. I know I want to make sure I bring her greetings to you as well. Even as we're ending our time together, I wanted to make sure I said that. So again, thank you, Ursula, for being with us.
Thanks, everybody. That was very fun. Take care.
Also, I believe you will be getting a survey for this so that you have a link to the recording. And I believe there's a PowerPoint presentation the PowerPoint presentation can be given to you as well. So if you reach out to Ursula, maybe put your email again in the chat room so that we have that. I want to make sure we have that information there. And after you do that and give you a moment to copy that or write that down, I will go ahead and officially end the recording here. But just want to make sure you have that chance there. It's info@beaboveleadership.com. Again, that's info@beaboveleadership.com. And Brenda also, who's on our board, she had put her email address in there too. She's our Director of Marketing and Communications. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right now.